working, but let's see if the microphone's working. So 2025 end of year wrap up. So I thought what would be cool as we go into 2026 would be to take a look at the cost of maintenance, cost of ownership of these cars over the past year. A lot has changed in 2025. We got rid of the CL, we got the NSX. We also did a lot of wrap up work on the Acura Legend. And so maybe you're curious about kind of what it was like to experience those cars and what the cost to maintenance was for those. Um, and also, we'll go over some of the plans for like 2026. So maybe that's of interest to you, and we'll just dive into it a little bit here. So, starting with the Acura um, Legend beside me, that car didn't see a lot of miles this year. So, Nam this year was in Vermont. We were the hosts, so unfortunately, we didn't get to travel a lot with the car. We did get an opportunity to take it on a few road trips. Most notably, we went down to the Audrey Museum. It was on our bucket list. That's in Rhode Island. And so we were able to participate in one of their what they call young timer events. We took the Legend there instead of the NSX, even though I had just acquired the NSX. And that car for this year, just about 1,500 miles. And for that 1,500 miles, we ended up investing about $1,900 in maintenance. $1,900 in maintenance was really just carryover costs from 2024 when we went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, had the head gasket issue identified, and then had to obviously remedy that. You saw the videos on the channel, us doing that work, and so the cost of that really ended up hitting on the first part of this year. So that $1,900 is almost solely related to the head gasket. Did an oil change, did some fluid changes, so maybe about like $100 of that was actual maintenance costs. So now we've actually hit kind of a sweet spot with this car where we're not doing a lot of maintenance on it, a lot of costly repairs. We've kind of worked out all the kinks at this point, and so now we have the opportunity to enjoy it. Now, with that being said, there are just a few things that I think I want to get ironed out with that car before it goes on too many more adventures. One of which is that, like I got a little bit of a shimmy between like 2,500 and 3,000 RPMs with that car. That might be like axle related issues, and so I've got two um, axles, remanufactured axles, up in the attic above the garage, and so I've been debating whether I want to install those or not. I might drive it, put some miles on it because it sits. You might get some shaking because it sits. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in 2026 and if we end up going ahead and swapping those axles. Um, for this year, obviously we're going to try to go to the National Acura Legend meet, but I'm also kind of plotting out what I think 2026 will look like. I want to go to a couple more events in the Northeast area. We went to an event in Manchester or Nashua, actually, New Hampshire, not Manchester, New Hampshire, Nashua, at the Sunnyside Acura event. They do two events. They do one in the early part of the year, like I want to say March, April, springtime, anyways. And that one we ended up going to taking the Legend last year, and I think this year again I want to take the Legend because the second one is their exotic car show, and I think just because of the way that fits, it makes more sense to take the NSX probably to that one and not to the first one. But we'll see. That may subject to change on that, but all in all, we'll probably go to one or both of those events because it's only about 2 hours away. And I really like that dealership. They're I don't know if he's the GM or who he is necessarily, but I had a really good engagement with him through social media as well as in person. And he's the guy that ho- hosts, put on the event, kind of organizes everything for them for those two events. And he's really enthusiastic about getting the Legend back there now that he knows that I have an NSX. He wants or has reached out and said, "Why don't you bring the NSX to one of the events?" So in the future, I think we'll, obviously oblige, maintain that relationship. He also did a lot of advertising for the National Acura Legend Meet all the way in New Hampshire, so extending our reach outside of Vermont into New Hampshire and even into some of the northern parts of Massachusetts, which was really, really cool for him to do that. So I'd like to, yeah, I don't know, pay it back, so to speak, by bringing the cars again because they don't get legends to these events. It's usually like Civics, Integras, new, old. Um, there was like one NSX there last year for the first event. Second event had a couple NSXs there, my understanding, but I didn't go to that one. So that's kind of what we have plotted for that. And then I think we might attend another event probably mid-year into the New England area. Maybe the Audrey and Young Timers one again. Maybe it's something similar to that because there's a couple organizations that do that. But anyways, this one's going to go on the road this year. It's going to hit a lot of pavement. I want to drive this one again. Now that had like some seat time in the NSX, I want to go back to the Legend and kind of split the time up a little bit. So that's the plans for 2026. That's the cost for the Legend this year. And let's move over to the NSX. So we sold the Acura CL in July, or I'm sorry, in June, but it actually didn't get picked up until July. That's an interesting story all in itself that we could dive into a little bit. But basically, the CL went on Bring a Trailer. I debated whether I was going to do Cars and Biz or Bring a Trailer, but Bring a Trailer ended up being the right move for us. Netted what I wanted to get and then a little bit more so that we could take that money from the CL and turn it into the purchase or acquisition of the NSX. And a lot of people don't know this, but I was actually debating not buying an NSX, which sounds crazy because I'm an Acura and Honda nut, but I was actually thinking about a 911. That's my other like hidden passion is 911s. So long story short, it had to be a certain NSX. It had to be Brooklyn's Green. So when this one came up for sale and it was well within our price range that my wife and I had agreed to, I was like, it's a no-brainer. I got to go out and see this. We purchased the NSX and we drove it back all the way from Chicago, which is where it was purchased. And it was a great adventure, all documented on the channel. So if you want to go see that, you can. But we crossed 100,000 miles driving it back. And this year, since the point of ownership, so it was the June 30th was the day I bought the NSX and drove it back. And so from that point forward, it was an investigation of what does the car need? And I'm a little crazy, so I dive deep into these things and I start to find things that I want to change that are immediate, and then I enjoy it, and then I go, well, okay, this is going on the winter maintenance list or the winter rehab list, so to speak. So motor mounts needed to be replaced right away. Three of the four on the car were ripped or deteriorated in some fashion, so needed to get that resolved right away. They had a pipe because this car was lower. The NSX was like super low by the previous owner to the point where their solution was to crank the damper response rate up all the way to firm. So it was like shattering your spine, which bent a pipe underneath the exhaust. So the dealership actually had that pipe ready to give to us, but they didn't install it. So there was a no cost there other than the gaskets to do that. But while we were under there, found that the oil pan was leaking. I was like, okay, it was disclosed, but it got worse as we were going and exacerbated the issue by driving it. Then we discovered that spool valves were leaking. So these are all like issues with a car that has sat a long time. And a lot of people may not know this, but the car sat for almost 8 years, not really driving. It had like 2,000 miles on it in 8 years. So when you start driving the car again, you find all the little weaknesses to it. And so that's what went on the winter maintenance list. And so, I mean, we took the interior out, did a full clean, upgraded the stereo system, um, pretty much have everything done on the engine side now. We remedied the lost motion assemblies, new timing belt, because like I said, it had been sitting for 8 years, even though the belt was probably fine. Peace of mind is always what I'm looking for. especially on an expensive car like this. And then it was like talking with science of speed, understanding that there's certain things that you should probably do while you're in there too. Like, how old's your crank pulley? Is it cracked? Ours was cracked, so then it needed to be replaced. All of that accumulated to a sum total within that 6 months of $3,000. So $3,000 of parts is what it accumulated to for the NSX. But I think we're over the hump now. So now that we're over the hump, it should be like really small going into 2026. There's a few things that need to be purchased. There's a few things that I'm not going to be able to do in the garage. A key example of that would be like I need to recharge the AC system. I've debated many times doing DIYing an AC recharge. I've seen many videos of it. It seems simple, but it's just not something that I think the cost of buying the equipment and doing it is going to really justify the purchase price of all of that. So I'm going to have a shop just recharge the AC. So there's things like that. We did drive it though. Let's see, 2,000 miles. So it was like 2,200 miles total this year, including the trip back from Chicago. So if you factor in $3,000, 2,200 miles, that's kind of what we're looking at right there. So not bad. The plans for 2026 are obviously to get it back on the road, figure out if there's any weirdnesses after all the maintenance that we've done on it. Usually there's one or two things that I gotta like, oh, okay, we gotta figure that out real quick. But otherwise, it's gonna go to a lot of shows, I hope. When I say I hope, because I really don't want to drive it in poor conditions. Unlike this car, I'm fine driving it in poor conditions, rain, but I'm not confident and comfortable driving such an expensive car in rainy conditions if I don't have to. It's a pleasure car. It's one of those things where it's like you put it on a pedestal and you finally achieve it, you just don't want to ruin it. And maybe at a point, I'll get to that point where it's okay. But for right now, I'm gonna find local events that I'm gonna take it to, maybe Cars and Coffee. I like taking it to Cars and Coffee and some of the smaller ones because they're never gonna be able to see an NSX otherwise. The bigger one, yeah, you get to see an NSX occasionally there. So I'll probably take it to some of the smaller ones, but regional is what I'm thinking. But I also want to take this to the 2026 Honda Heritage Museum event. I missed it last year because it overlapped with NAM just by one day. And so this year I want to be able to do that with this car. We're going to take it down to Ohio. And it's not going to go this year to NS Expo. I've decided that because it's in Orlando, Florida, and I have no desire to go to Orlando, Florida. I lived in Sebring, Florida for so many years. I know the area very well, and I have no desire to go back to it, which is a shame because I'd like to bring it to NS Expo. But in 2027, it's going to go to Cleveland, Ohio they're there. So kind of like set to figure out everything. So that's where we're at right now. And oh, I see some people dropping in. That's awesome. So hi, we're just now wrapping it up, but great to see some people dropping into the chat. 2026 is gonna be a great year, more for the Legend than I think the NSX, but maybe it'll turn out to be the other way around. So if if you're wondering kind of like where we're at with everything, there's going to be a couple new videos coming out on the NSX about bleeding the coolant, and then we're going to do some drive shafts or axle removals and do some resealing of the connection points there into the transmission and into the intermediate shaft. So you might want to stay tuned for that. But otherwise, we're getting pretty close, and that's our plans for 2026. So there you are, wrapping it up, and hope everybody has a great New Year's. This has been a fun year. Got to get a pinnacle car, plus we got to host the National Acura Legend Meet. Can't ask for anything more than that. But wishing you all a great start to your 2026, and we'll wrap it off there.